Chapter 13. The thought surprised me. I just fed off a spirit, but suddenly I felt a stirring hunger. I shook it off and faced Master Sabriel, wiping any emotion from my face. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, trying to find my focus. What sort of being would feed on the depravity of others? I'd done it my whole existence, but only because I had no choice. So, why did I desire to do so now? Was it in my nature as a demon to do so? Or was I weak because of the previous night? If left to my own devices, would I choose to relish the anguish of mortals? The thought bothered me enough that my spirit trembled. I didn't want to be someone who enjoyed the suffering of others. When had I begun to desire to be something different? Take a deep breath and hold it. Feel your lungs expand the way they did when you were alive. Your spiritual bodies are a representation of your physical ones, but without the handicaps or limitations that held you back. You might feel the urge to take a breath, but your cells are not screaming for oxygen. You can hold your breath forever. I couldn't hold my breath at all. My spiritual lungs didn't know how to do such a thing. For that matter, what was breathing? I could speak on command, but I'd never considered the manual act of pulling air in and out of my lungs. Now, exhale. With your eyes closed, visualize your breath intermingling with the atmosphere around you. Here in Arcadia, there is a higher concentration of light. Try to picture it. Imagine the power as sparks of energy, beads of life pulsing near your ears, your eyes, your nose. Inhale again and feel them enter your system. We've done this much before. It's time to expand your experience. Place your hands on the grass. Feel the sensation of life beneath your palms. Treasure it. Honor it. Find the energy source in the soil that nourishes the plants. Don't rush things. Nothing. I had nothing. I put my fingers on the grass, the stems tickling my skin, still attempting to breathe in and out as if it were something I'd done my whole existence. The grass clumped beneath my fingers, and I searched for energy pulses, for life, for anything. Picture your spirit reaching into the ground, finding that energy. Now, pull the power from the ground, coax it into the roots of the grass, nourish them, give them life, feel them grow. I heard a gasp beside me, and I peeked one eye open. The Hesed angel had dug her hands into the ground, and the grass around her fluttered upward, twining with her fingers, creeping around her wrists. "I feel it," Israfile said, wonder in his voice, and I looked over at the Aleph angel from my group. "It's like the embodiment of life itself." "I can see the spark of life," another Hesed angel whispered. "They're just out of reach, but I see them in my mind. They're everywhere." "Good," Sabriel said, smiling, and I snapped my eyes shut. With more desperation than earlier, I dug my fingers into the grass, reaching into the root system, searching out the life source. Water, nutrients, sunlight. I gripped slippery green shoots in frustration and pulled. They yanked out of the dirt, slender brown roots and all. "Oh," I said softly, feeling morose sadness as I stared at them. I hadn't given them life. I'd taken it. I considered skipping dinner and going straight to my dorm, but the truth was, I wanted to put something tasty in my mouth. My heart hurt from the failure in creation class, even though Master Sabriel gestured for me to stay in class after everyone left. "Don't be too hard on yourself," she said, peering at my face even as I avoided her eyes. "This was your first time. The other students have been coming for a month, learning how to feel the energies for weeks before we attempted to manipulate them." I nodded, wishing I could believe her, wishing the only cause of my failure was my lack of preparation. Now my spirit craved chocolate. My tongue, which had never tasted food until I'd arrived at the academy, had quickly grown accustomed to it. I knew the sweetness would soothe the aching in my heart. At least I wasn't longing to devour Jeremiel's essence anymore. I delayed entering the cafeteria until the majority of the angels had gone in. Then I went inside and skipped getting a tray, instead grabbing 2 cookies and ducking back outside again, taking my cookies and heading to my room to sulk in peace. My agenda dinged at me before I finished crossing the quad. I pulled it from my bag and wasn't surprised to see a message flashing at the bottom of the screen. But I was surprised to see who it was from. Malik. What could our brave leader want with me? We hadn't spoken since our last tutoring session, nearly 2 weeks prior. I couldn't read his message and couldn't respond either, so I did the only thing I knew to do. I pressed the red locator button, and then I stood there, waiting, 2 cookies in my hand, knowing he would find me. He came out a moment later, pushing open the cafeteria doors and joining me halfway to my dormitory. "Come to talk to me about the incident in creations class?" I said. He wasn't in my class, being a second year, but I could imagine the report the other students had given him at Table D. He paused. "Hello, how are you? I'm good, thanks for asking." I blinked and shook my head. "I didn't ask." "No," he said, and something like a smile creased his features. "I know, but you should have." "Why? I'm not interested in your well-being. You are the one who contacted me." "But you should be, Jez." My temper rose and I glared at him. "Did you need me for something?" "No, but I did hear about the incident in creations class. I wanted to make sure you were all right." His words were concerned, but the stern expression on his face, coupled with his hands shoved deep in his pockets, did not fill me with the desire to share my innermost feelings with him. "I'm fine. Creating life is a new aspect for me." One eyebrow lifted over his light brown eyes. "I suppose it is. Probably doesn't come naturally." He was only voicing what I had already thought, but coming from him, an angel who thought himself superior because he had chosen a different side, rankled my ichor. I turned away and continued my march toward the dorm. "Elder Master Barakiel asked me to try to fit in another study session with you," Malik said, matching my stride. "He said it would go a long way to easing some of the frustrations you're feeling." These angels had no understanding of the concept of privacy. I rounded on him, fully annoyed. "And why would I want to do that? So I could sit there and be insulted by you, all in the name of furthering my education? So the Barakiel can listen in on my thoughts and feel self-satisfaction that he is so much more enlightened than I am? Maybe I'll find someone else to teach me to read." "Why?" Malik asked, something like wounded pride entering his voice. "We were accomplishing something, and it's more than just reading. There's so much you don't know." "I could think of other people I would rather learn it from," I snapped. Malik's eyes hardened. "Suit yourself. See if someone else will be as understanding about what you are as I am." "Aha!" I actually laughed. "This is what you call understanding?" How I longed to be able to take my finger and dig it into his chest. "You know nothing, but you think you know everything. One of us is unteachable, and it isn't me." "So at least we're in agreement. This arrangement was never going to work." Malik did not even wait for me to come up with a retort. He pushed ahead of me toward the dorm. I considered chasing after him, furious enough to continue our argument, to make him recognize his arrogance. But I realized how desperate that would make me look. His wings folded up when he opened the door, and I couldn't take my eyes off his retreating back. I felt a spasm in my heart, a mixture of envy and wounded feelings. What did I care what Malik thought? I was making other friends. I fumed through the rest of the evening, indignant over Malik's insinuation that he was the only one who could teach me to read, the only one who would be willing to do so. Iblis sat at her desk with a small plant, humming as she caressed it. I couldn't help watching. Though her plant did not suddenly grow upward like the Hesed's plant in class had, it didn't die either. not like mine. My schedule dinged. I chose not to look at it. I couldn't respond anyway. "What do you suppose our families are doing now?" Iblis asked, startling me out of my reverie. I preferred not to think about it, really. "I don't know. What do you think yours is doing?" "My mom is probably sad," Iblis said, her tone wistful. "I hope my brothers are okay. One's in college, and the other's married. I didn't see them much, but I adored them. And Jason?" Her tone became hushed. "I don't know how he is. I'm worried he blames himself. I'd like to see him." I remembered Jeremiel's desire to see his family. "You could ask, find out how it works." "I did, in Gehenna, when I finally accepted what happened. They told me I would see them when the time was right. Anyway, what's the rush? We have eternity." She smiled, but I sensed it wasn't genuine. "I would like to comfort my mother. I can't wait. Why can't we see them now?" I shook my head. "I don't know. I had no reason to see Earth. There was nobody there I was longing for." Her agenda dinged and she opened it up. "Oh, I got a message." She sounded surprised and delighted, and she glanced at me. "What?" Somehow I sensed I was supposed to have a reaction here. I cocked my head and said, "Oh." It must have been the correct response. "It's from Barakiel. He asked me to tell you he sent you a message. He said you might need some help with it. Did you see the message?" Now even Barakiel was getting in my business. Soon the whole school would know I couldn't read. "No, I'm good," I said. "I just haven't responded to him yet. But I will, when I was good and ready." The next morning, my schedule showed me to go to the library after breakfast. Kerubiel found me on the way and invited me to eat with him. Something about the shadow shade pulled me, and I followed him to his table without question. I sat with him and the other angels from Emet, the purple of their uniforms dark enough to swallow the light in the room. Maybe that was why I liked them. "She's not an Emet," one of the girls said. I watched the dark color spilling across the table at her words, a visible extension of her emotional projection. "She's more like us than anyone else here. Trust me on this," Kerubiel said. I gave him a startled look, not quite sure what he meant by that, but he just shrugged and went back to his food. The others accepted me because Kerubiel did, so I tried not to worry about what he meant. Instead, I cut my pancake into little bitty pieces, trying to avoid the sticky sweet syrup all over the plate. I decided I preferred yogurt. When breakfast ended, I snuck away to the dorms and sat down on my bed instead of following orders and going to the library. It was the first time I'd chosen to disobey, and it gave me a strangely heady feeling, almost empowering. I sat on my bed in the empty room, wondering if I'd actually get away with it. What was everyone else from my dorm doing right now? What classes did they have while I was still learning to read? Class had been in session nearly 2 months now, the weather changing into fall, and my schedule was only missing a few of the general education classes. Still, I couldn't help wondering what they were learning without me. I lay back on my bed and let time wrap around me the way it had so many times in Sheol, when agency was a foreign concept. But time didn't seem to work as it had before. Instead of entering a semi-aware state, I felt more anxious with each passing moment. My agenda dinged, and I opened it up to see another message. This one was also from Barakiel, and it showed beneath the one he had sent me the night before. I squinted at it, recognizing the first 4 letters. P-L-E-A. Another letter followed, but I couldn't remember what it was, and an E finished the word. I might be able to figure this one out. I sounded out the letters P-L-E-A. Only a handful of words could start this way. Plead, please, pleat. Please. That had to be it. He was issuing a request. But the rest of the symbols I didn't recognize. I couldn't guess what he was asking. The image of the lit-up library on my screen dissolved to be replaced by the administration building. Now I understood. I hadn't gone to the library, and now I was wanted at the administration building. I could only imagine what this was about. You can refuse, I told myself. You are not required to obey. But it was not in my nature to rebel. This recent act of rebellion, choosing to come to my room instead of the library, left my stomach queasy and my hands shaking. Uttering a dramatic sigh that would have made Iblis proud, I shuffled to my feet and made my way to the administration building. I had not been inside since the first day I arrived. As it had before, the screen on my schedule changed when I entered the building and showed me the path to take. I walked down the hallway, past 3 doors, and then made a right. On my left was an open door, and I paused in front of it.
Come in, Jez.
I did so, hesitant. Elder Master Barakiel slid from behind his desk, his wings hidden as he approached me. He looked like a human. It occurred to me that so did I.
Thank you for coming.
I narrowed my eyes, as if I had a choice.
Here, you always have a choice.
I gave a dry laugh. We have different definitions of choice. Barakiel sat down and folded his fingers together.
You have a different understanding of heaven, but that's not why I called you here. I'm concerned about the altercation you had with Malik.
I rolled my eyes. It wasn't an altercation.
You missed your lesson this morning.
I arched a brow. Malik said we were done, so I didn't go.
Humans often say things in anger that they do not mean. Malik is still learning to curb his passions.
Oh, well, I shrugged and pleated my hands together. It's probably for the best anyway. We don't get along.
He came to me when you didn't show.
To tell you how unteachable I am?
He did say he cannot teach you.
This was sounding familiar. Didn't he say that last time?
He said he unintentionally offends you at every turn and does not wish to continue to put negative feelings between you.
That stopped me. He had taken the blame upon himself instead of pointing it at me. I trailed my fingers along the wooden desk and frowned at Barakiel. He said that? Barakiel sighed.
Jez,
Jez, I hissed, glancing around quickly.
Jez, I know this is a difficult transition for you, but you face everyone with blades drawn, metaphorically speaking, and not everyone sees you as the enemy.
My thoughts flew to Kerubiel, who seemed to sense there was more to me than met the eye, but accepted me anyway. Malik sees me as the enemy.
He sees Sheol as the enemy.
And I'm the embodiment of all he's been taught to hate, I said bitterly.
We do not teach hate,
Barakiel said.
And you are not that embodiment.
I stayed silent. The angels might not teach hate, but mortals learned it. The fallen arrived in Sheol either lusty in their desire to take revenge on heaven and God, or terrified of what eternal damnation might mean. There was no love or curiosity or desire for friendship, only hatred and fear.
Try one more time,
Barakiel said.
Give Malik a chance. He is one of my very best pupils, and I have faith in him.
This is the 3rd time, I said.
Give him as many tries as necessary.
I let out another dramatic sigh. Fine. One more time, but if it doesn't work, I want another teacher.
Agreed.
Barakiel checked a large screen on his desk, his finger moving across it and scrolling it upward.
Your next class is Synergy. It will be outside at the Synergy Fields after lunch. I think you will enjoy this class. It's where you'll learn how to master your energy. The class only started this week for all first years, so you haven't missed anything.
He looked at me with his piercing eyes.
Go be with your dorm mates. Get to know them. The time for you to make your final choice will arrive before you know it, and the more educated you are, the better decision you can make.
I nodded and backed away, careful not to think until I'd escaped the room. My final choice: to stay at GAA or return to Sheol. I knew what was expected of me, but I wasn't sure I could do it. Chapter 14. The faces of the kids from my dorm were becoming more familiar to me. Jeremiel sat beside Iblis, who shared a pastry with Dara. Malik, Daniel, and Aramil sat talking together, while several other students I didn't know listened with riveted attention to Vanina, a girl with long blonde hair and dark eyes, and as subject to vanity as any fallen I'd ever met. None of them excluded me. They knew who I was by now, but there was no doubt from the way they shifted and turned ever so slightly away from me. I was different, and they felt it. I might be in their dorm, but I was the weird one. Jess? Dara caught my eye and held out a piece of pastry. Would you like some? You're not eating. Oh, I'd forgotten to get a tray and go through the line. Friendship. She's offering it to you over food. Food came riddled with so many connections. Food was meant to create bonds between those who shared and ate together. And Dara was reaching out, making an offering. So I pulled my lips up into a smile. Thanks. I accepted the pastry, careful to make sure our fingers didn't touch. The sweet crumbs melted away on my tongue, and oddly enough, I felt a tiny bit closer to her. Dara smiled back. Her dark hair was pulled up in a bun on top of her head, the navy sweater proclaiming her dorm. I was shy on Earth, too. It was hard for me to make friends. It's definitely easier here, though. I didn't get the same experience, I said. Iblis told me. She said your Earth life was hard. My eyes went wide, and I shot a glance at Iblis, startled to learn they'd been talking about me. You told her? Should I not have? Iblis furrowed her brow, looking confused. Was it a secret? Everything is a secret, I said, lowering my voice as the conversations around us died down and more eyes turned our direction. If I tell you something, or you learn something about me, it's not for you to share with the entire group. Good feelings abandoned, I shoved to my feet and stomped away from the table. Jez, Iblis called. I heard her jump up and run after me, but I quickened my pace, escaping the cafeteria ahead of her. My anger carried me, and for a moment, I thought I might be able to fly, wings or no wings. The water from the fountain flew upward when I passed and crashed down behind me, soaking the grass and stone pathways. I took a deep breath, calming my fury. I may as well go to my next class and learn how to master my energy. I spotted purple sweaters as I approached, an indication that the Emmett dormitory was also in this class. Other Aleph students had arrived and seated themselves on the wooden chairs set up facing the tree line. My eyes scanned the purple uniforms, looking for the boy who would not be wearing the school blazer. There he was, still in his black earth clothing. Kerubiel fit in with the color of his dorm, without even trying, the black blending with the purple. Jez, he said, fondness in his voice when I settled down in the chair beside him. Hi, I said, sliding a glance at him. A piece of hair fell in front of my face, and I tucked it away. His eyes followed the motion, and then he gave me a slow smile, a smile that seemed to have a hidden meaning behind it. If only I could interpret it. Welcome, angels. I whipped my head forward, startled to see Barakiel standing in the midst of us. Where did he come from? I breathed. Beats me, Kerubiel said. I didn't see him fly in. He squinted. Can he even fly without his wings? Barakiel continued speaking. In this class, you will learn to master the energy within you and use it to control the elements. Does anyone know what synergize means? Not a soul raised a hand. I certainly didn't. Synergize means the combined efforts of two or more beings to create a result. In other words, while you can use your energy to some extent on your own, the peak of your abilities comes only when you learn how to merge your energy with another. We won't get to that today, but know it's the end point of these exercises. We will begin with recognizing the energy you hold. The energy is within you, and you must learn to harness it. You will likely find one element in particular is easier for you to control. Some of them you might not ever control. It is rare that an angel cannot control any element. However, it does happen sometimes. What would that mean? A girl from Emet asked. That we don't have enough energy within us?
No, just that you are unable to channel it.
But don't we have to master all of our classes to pass them? Iblis asked.
Is school all she cares about?
Kerubiel murmured, and the Amet around him chuckled. The sound wasn't friendly, and my defenses flared. Why did that bother me? I hadn't forgotten I was angry with her, but it still rubbed me wrong. She just wants to do everything correctly.
Yeah, we have a name for those people,
Kerubiel said, and more snide laughter followed. I turned away, huffy and annoyed for reasons I couldn't explain. In the meantime, another student spoke, and I missed Barakiel's answer.
Please stand and spread out,
he said.
Find a space around you where you won't bump into anyone.
I stood and took several paces away from Kerubiel, glad for the reason to put distance between us.
Now, extend your hand like this.
Barakiel demonstrated, holding his right hand out, chest high, palm down.
Look down at the earth in front of you. Close your eyes and imagine you can see into your heart.
I did as he commanded. I peered into my soul, searching for a heart. Did I have one?
Physical, body, or spiritual, the heart is the center of your soul. See it beating. See the life force it sends rushing through your being with every second.
I let out a small gasp, because I could see it. Tiny rivers of gold energy sped through me, dissipating at my fingers and toes, only to have another river of blue energy come sweeping back in, racing into my soul.
If you haven't found it, keep searching. If you did, bend your fingers and dip them into that life force.
I bent the fingers of my extended hand, as if brushing the surface of a gilded river. I opened my eyes, marveling when I saw the gold energy perched on the edges of my fingers. Barakiel walked among us, his hands behind his back, smiling and nodding.
Good. As soon as you've pulled that energy to the surface, turn your palm right side up. Feel that energy at your fingertips. That's your life force. It will enable you to manipulate the air, move mountains, or call down the sky itself. By yourself, however, you will only achieve a portion of that power.
I turned my hand over, watching the orange energy flow across the back of my hand and over my palm. I had it. I had the life force. It sparked and shimmered, and I felt that this power was strong enough to accomplish any task.
The life force energy will be used in almost all of your classes. You've already learned how to summon it, to some extent, in your creations class. Now, there are a few rules you should remember when it comes to the elements.
I lifted my eyes and focused on him, drunk off the euphoria of having found my life force.
You cannot coerce another being into sharing their life force with you to manipulate the elements. When you synergize with another angel, it must be a mutual agreement. You will channel your forces outside your bodies and work together to achieve a purpose. You will learn how to do this as a second year. And you cannot take the life force of a mortal creature, no matter how small or insignificant the creature might seem.
But we could. The Fallen did. They sucked up the life force of mortal humans and kept them as slaves, forming a symbiotic relationship. The humans got longer life while they served the Fallen, and the Fallen had a physical being on Earth to do their bidding. Perhaps what Barakiel meant was to do so would tarnish our souls and banish us from Arcadia, from the Academy. In that way, we could not do so. At least, we could not if we wished to remain a student. I shook my head, clearing it of the riddles and circular word choice. My eyes fell upon my hand, where the energy had grown into a shimmering ribbon of light dancing around my fingers.
Please spend the rest of our class session familiarizing yourself with your life force. Discover how to tap into it and access it quickly, and make the action instinctive. When you need the energy, you don't want to think about how to access it. Let it go, and then summon it back again.
I opened my palm flat and watched the shimmering orange life force return to my body, channeling back into a river of gold, flowing in and out of me with each moment. I imagined dipping my finger into that river again, then scooping it up by the handful. The energy rocked its way to my palm and coalesced, glittering like a miniature sun. Amazing, I whispered. Why did the fallen need access to mortal energy when we held this much within ourselves? Could the fallen not do this? The answer came to me with certainty, even though no one had ever told me. The fallen lost their life force when they descended to Sheol. That was why they needed to harvest the energy of mortals.
Next time, we will use this energy to learn how to manipulate the elements. Here's your homework assignment. Go to the library and research the elements. Do not try to summon one. We will do that in class. But each element symbolizes a heavenly attribute. You might be able to interpret what element you will have the most success with based on your personality or life experience.
Barakiel smiled.
But be prepared to be surprised. It's not always what you expect.
Jez, please, wait. I was still marveling over my ability to access my life force. I turned my hand over and over, studying it, wondering. I glanced up at Iblis as she approached, only remembering after she reached my side that I was angry with her. Please don't be mad, she said, her blue eyes wide and woeful. I'm sorry for saying anything about you to Dara. I just thought... She broke off, and I couldn't be sure what she thought. I'm not angry anymore, I said. I'm unfamiliar with living with others. I simply assumed when you learned something about me or my life, you would keep it to yourself. I paused. Is that unusual? Do people share information about each other with others? Well, it depends. Her face flushed pink. It's called gossip when you talk about others, but usually that means you're talking negatively. Dara's my friend. She's nice, and we're all kind of family here, so I thought you wouldn't mind. But I was wrong, and I'm sorry. Why were you wrong? It upset you. I shouldn't be the one to judge what if your personal business gets to be public knowledge, so I apologize. It did make me feel like I can't tell you anything about myself, I admitted. But I thought maybe that is how this existence is. If I want something kept private, I must keep it to myself. No. She reached for my hand, but checked herself and withdrew. I almost smiled. At least she'd learned not to touch me. I'm trustworthy, really. I won't say anything about you to anyone. There are many things about me I don't wish anyone to know, I said. Like that you don't have wings? I drew back, sucking in a sharp breath. What? She gave me a smile. There are a lot of things you can hide, but not your lack of wings. Her wings flapped open and beat the air for a moment, as if in agreement to her statement. I tried to stuff mine under a jacket, like I thought yours were. I couldn't. Maybe my wings are very tiny, I said, my voice small. She looked instantly contrite. I'm sorry, I didn't consider that. So you're embarrassed of your wings? Yes, I said, my face flaming. I hadn't meant to tell a lie, but somehow the falsehood had happened, and I went with it. Have other people asked? She nodded. Yes, but not me. I heard them asking Malik. Malik. My shoulders stiffened. If he felt my information was as public as Iblis did, but no. Everyone would know about me already if he thought that way. What did he say? That you're a student here like everyone else, and they should ask you if they have questions. He said that? A warm feeling simmered in my chest, and I glanced around, as if to catch a glimpse of him. But he hadn't been in our synergy class. So, if they ask me... She paused, her cheeks turning pink. Do you want me to say anything? I exhaled, considering. It might be good if she spread the word. Yes, tell them I don't want to talk about it. You're sensitive about it. She gave me a knowing look, and then her brow creased. I wonder why they're small, though. Do you think it has to do with how unhappy your life was? Yes, I said with conviction. I'm sure it has everything to do with that. My schedule lit up the next morning after breakfast, highlighting the Gabriel building. TLG, I muttered. Time for my therapy class. With any luck, Master Alelith would continue to skip me. Even though I was one of the only students who hadn't gone, he knew my past. He wouldn't expect me to share that with the other angels. At least, that's what I hoped. Iblis had already left for breakfast. I lingered behind in our dorm room, examining my closet full of academy clothing. There were pants and sweaters, skirts and jackets, and, of course, the ties, navy or gold or both. It was a much bigger assortment than necessary, as I had never felt the need to change my attire. Checking the room one last time to make sure I was alone, I slipped off the jacket Barakiel had given me when I arrived at Arcadia. The chains lay quiet and innocuous against my skin. I pulled one of the white blouses from the closet and held it against my torso. The material was foreign and unfamiliar. Feeling entirely at odds with myself, I slipped my arms into the long sleeves and buttoned it up over my black halter. I looked at the ties hanging from a rack and fingered a silky navy blue one, similar to the one Iblis liked to wear. But that felt like a bigger commitment, as if putting it on would signify I was all in, and I wasn't. The white shirt didn't feel like enough protection, so I chose a navy sweater and pulled it on over my shirt. I did not change my skirt. This was enough for now. I went down to breakfast, pulling the edges of the sweater around me subconsciously, suddenly anxious everyone would notice my change of clothes and comment. But nobody did. If anything, my fellow students seemed to smile at me a little bigger and include me a little more. I used my fork to cut my fruit into tiny pieces, and I took small bites. Heaven truly meant to torture the fallen by not including food in Sheol. I watched as Dara and Iblis finished eating and carried their trays together to the window, where they were deposited. Then they hooked their arms through each other's, their wings tucked in against their backs as they made their way out of the cafeteria. I stood up and put away my tray, then walked behind them, wanting to join them, but feeling completely different than them. Other students came out behind me, and I considered slowing to walk with them, but I found I was more comfortable in the middle. Perhaps my isolation was self-induced. The chatter quieted as we entered the Gabriel building. The voices turned to whispers and then to silence, and we clustered closer together, me folding in on myself to make sure nobody bumped me. The room was set up as it had been before, with chairs in a circle and Master Alelith already seated in one. It was a big circle, with maybe 25 chairs, but I was familiar enough with my year to know there were many more of us apprentices than merely 25. It was easier to share our personal lives in smaller groups. "Good to see you all again," Alelith said. "I hope in the weeks between the last time we met and today, you've had the chance to get to know each other more and feel more comfortable sharing the details of your lives." I sat myself in my chair and focused my eyes on my hands. Maybe the rest of them had gotten more comfortable with each other, but I was still trying to figure out where I fit. Alelith's eyes went around the circle and landed on Malik. "The first time we met, I started the conversation by sharing my story. I've skipped over Malik because he's not a first year. But today, Malik, as team lead for your dorm, I invite you to share yours." I lifted my head and turned to him, as did everyone else in the circle. Chapter 15. Malik cleared his throat and then bent forward, resting his elbows on his knees and clasping his fingers together.
"Yeah, sure. Why not?"
He pushed his hands off his knees and leaned back, his wings opening to readjust before folding around the back of the chair.
"My death was stupid, and it didn't feel fair at the time. I was a swimmer. I swam meets and competitions and was becoming good. But I overestimated my ability. When I was 17, I was at the lake with several of my buddies. We lived near Lake Michigan and went there a lot. Some of them were getting on a little crazy, and they weren't thinking right, and my friend did a backflip into the water. Except the back of his head hit the dock before he fell in and knocked him unconscious."
Pain flickered across Malik's features, and he pressed his lips together.
"I thought I could save him, so I dove into the water. But instead, we both drowned.
What a tragedy, Arella whispered.
Yeah, it was, but then it wasn't.
He shrugged.
I came here, and I can do so much good now. I'm really looking forward to becoming a Git, to receiving an assignment. I can do more to benefit people now than I thought possible before.
His pronouncement was met with silence. Israfile ventured. And your friend? Is he here too?
Yeah, except he's a telly, so he goes to the academy at Sinai. I've seen him a few times, at intercampus games.
That brought a whole slew of exclamations and excited remarks.
Are you angry at him?
Jeremiel asked.
How often did those happen?
Daniel asked.
No, I'm not angry at him,
Malik said.
I was only angry with myself when I realized what happened. But I'm not that anymore either. We made our choices, and these are the consequences. I've told him that too.
You mean we get to meet the other students? Vanina said. When are the games?
Elelith laughed.
Are you already tired of each other? Eager for new faces? But his eyes twinkled, negating any criticism from his words. You will see the other campuses at various Skyball games throughout the year, and all 3 campuses gather together for the championship game before the progression ceremony in the spring.
So, are the championship games like World Cup for soccer or something?
Israfile asked.
Kind of,
Malik said, inserting himself in the conversation.
All of the campuses come here. The playoff between the teams lasts all day, and it's fascinating to watch how the different groups use their gifts to play.
What do you mean, use their gifts? Vanina asked. I was glad she did, because I wanted to, but I doubted Malik would answer me.
Some of them are metamorphoses,
Malik said.
They can shapeshift, and they use that in the game. Some are tellies, and they can do things with their minds. It's fascinating to watch.
Yes, Elelith said. Skyball is amazing, and you'll have chances to go to several games before the semester is over. His eyes landed on the girl beside Jeremiel. Arella, could you share your story? We were done talking about the game, apparently. Arella, a girl with short black hair and dark velvety skin, took a deep breath and sat up straighter. Yes, I was born in Jamaica. My mind wandered as she told her story. I kept picturing Malik's narrative. A bunch of teenagers messing around at the water, probably giving in to the vice of alcohol, maybe even to lust. A shiver crept over my skin. Touch was forbidden for the spiritual beings, but the mortals engaged in physical acts whenever they wished. The resulting pleasure was a sinful act, an addicting release of hormones and chemicals that bound their spirits and made them more susceptible to temptations and wrong choices. Which was why touch was forbidden, and why choices should be also. Jez? Elelith's voice jarred me from my introspection, and I snapped my head his direction. Your turn. Can you share your story? I stared at him blankly, unbelieving. He actually wanted me to speak? I glanced at the students to my right and realized I had not even heard the past 2 stories. My mind had zoned out, and time had blipped by. My classmates still stared at me. I licked my lips and cleared my throat. What should I say? Whatever you wish.
How is this existence proving different from your last?
Malik said, drawing my gaze back to him. He nodded at me, his brown eyes taking on a golden hue.
What do you hope for your future?
For my future. I took a deep breath, concentrating on Malik's questions. He'd given me a focus, something I could truthfully address. I spent a lot of time in isolation before coming here, I said. My education was lacking, and I didn't have the opportunity to develop my humanity. At all. It's an adjustment, being here. I've learned more in the past 2 months than in the past year. I'm looking forward to feeling more comfortable with you, to understanding more about being human. I said the last word almost like a confession, admitting that I was something different than they were. Yet, the girls stared at me with compassion in their eyes, and even the boys wore expressions of understanding that they hadn't before. My face warmed and I looked down, running my hands over my knees. Thank you, Jess. You add an unexpected element to our dynamic. It's a pleasure to have you here. Elvis spoke without guile, and yet I thought I detected a note of amusement in his tone. His eyes flicked to the boy beside me. Leek, how about your story? Just like that, the attention moved off me. I breathed a sigh of relief and relaxed in my chair. My agenda chimed, letting me know I'd just received a message. I slid the book open in my lap. It was from Malik. The little circle image of his face showed beside the message banner. But instead of a series of symbols I wouldn't be able to interpret, he had sent just one, the image of a yellow fist with a thumb poking up. I didn't know what it meant, but it left me with the feeling of camaraderie. I leaned back enough to catch his eye. He gave a little head bob and then repeated the gesture with his hand, closing his fingers into his palm and lifting his thumb. I imitated him, and he smiled. I pulled forward, feeling the edges of my own smile tugging at my lips.
You did good.
Malik spoke quietly as we walked across the quad together, approaching the library. TLG had concluded with Leek, and my schedule had promptly shown me a new location, the library. Malik had slipped out before me, but I found him waiting for me outside the therapy room. He didn't say a word the whole way out of the building and halfway across the quad, and his words startled me from my own reverie now. What? I asked, trying to find context for his words.
With your story. Good job. You kept it real without giving too much away.
Thanks to his encouragement. I smirked. I didn't want to scare everyone in the room.
You wouldn't scare them. New apprentices don't know enough about the war yet.
Because they haven't had the history classes that fill them with lies and falsehoods about Sheol and Hasatan? Malik didn't answer. I mentally berated myself. I started another argument, didn't I? I hadn't meant to. It occurred to me that I wanted my lessons with Malik to continue. His confidence inspired calmness in me, and the hunger to learn what he knew roared like a lion inside me whenever he was near.
No, he said, his voice level. You don't know what you don't know. It's foolish of me to allow your ignorance to anger me.
Well, if those weren't fighting words. I pushed down my own frustration. It's you who doesn't understand. You can't believe everything they teach you.
Like you believe everything that's been taught to you?
He returned, some fire entering his tone. He held up a hand and shook his head.
Sorry, that's not what I meant to say.
To heaven with my resolution, my ichor warmed. Let's have it out. Tell me what you really think.
Jez, I remember.
His words stopped me. They didn't fit in the context of our conversation. I frowned at him, and he stopped in front of the library doors. You remember what? I asked. A nervous energy thrummed through me, as if I subconsciously knew his next words would be important.
I remember the war.
He turned to face me, his eyes dark and haunted.
I'm not parroting words and events that someone put in my head. I remember. I was there.
My breath caught, and I was captivated by his expression. Your memory has returned? I knew when the angels went to earth, a veil fell over their souls, covering the part of them that thrived in heaven, darkening what they knew of life beforehand. It seemed another trickery from heaven to me, another unfair move meant to coerce more souls to become fallen. Heaven preached multiplying and replenishing, but they wanted to populate Sheol and keep the streets of Shamayim empty, reserved for an elite few who saw through the deception. But their treachery would be our gain, because each soul who became a fallen became a soldier in Hasitan's army, and he was waging war on the mortals, dragging them down to become more fallen in an endless cycle. Except it would end, and soon. Delivering the dagger would be the beginning. Hasatan would have what he needed to begin his new rule, and God would pay. That was the plan, but why did I suddenly feel sick, shaky at my part in it? The war in heaven hadn't happened the way it was taught to the students, but I knew enough of Malik's character to know he wouldn't lie to me. Questions swirled through my head, but I had no right to know. I had no right to ask if Malik lost people, what he remembered, what happened to him in the war. I shivered, understanding his deep-seated hatred toward me now. I hadn't even been there, but I couldn't tell him that without giving away who I was. I also wasn't sure it would even make a difference. "I'm sorry," I said instead.
"Are you?"
His golden brown eyes were sharp and sad as he scanned my face.
"Do you even know what you should be sorry for?"
It was a sincere, serious question, and my breath caught. For a moment, I was lost in the depth of his gaze, which seemed to be an open door leading straight into his soul. "Yes," I whispered, captivated by his stare, even though, really, I didn't know. "I'm sorry." His eyes held mine a moment longer, and a sigh breathed from his lips, seeming to emerge from deep within his soul.
"Maybe."
With that one word hanging between us, he turned around and opened the library doors. I followed him, feeling an ache in my chest, as if I'd wounded him somehow, and in doing so, wounded myself. The sensation puzzled me. Malik settled himself at the same table we sat at before, and when he looked up at me, his expression had cleared.
"Let's see what you remember."
I sat across from him and watched him write the familiar symbols on the paper. "A for apple," I said immediately. One eyebrow shot up, and Malik appraised me.
"Nice. You remember. Try this one."
"B," I said as the rounded letters appeared. My heart soared. This made sense to me. Like baby, or beneath, or bad.
"Great job,"
Malik said.
"Let's go through the entire alphabet now."
He wrote out a series of symbols on the paper and then flipped it around to show me.
"What do you remember?"
I studied them and then touched the familiar ones. A, B, P, L, E, W.
"Can you make their sounds?"
"I think so." I attempted it, and Malik nodded.
"The next one is C."
He circled the semicircle and then wrote beneath it,
C-A-T.
He smirked.
"One of the first words kids learn in first grade."
"First grade?" I looked up at him.
"It's the schooling system used in most countries on Earth. You're learning English, but once you learn how to read one language, you'll be able to learn how to decipher any language."
"Really?" I remembered him saying that earlier, but it meant more to me now. I'd go from not being able to read any to being able to read them all. What a talent! What an asset I'd be to my father.
"Yeah, but you won't take that class until next year. It's a more advanced class."
Ah, I nodded my understanding, but my thoughts were already tumbling around the timeline. That meant I had to keep this charade up for at least one more year. I needed that skill set. Malik continued with the rest of the alphabet, and each letter that matched a sound was like a light clicking on in my head.
"You're doing a great job,"
he said after we'd done the last letter.
"Let's put the letters together to make words now."
I watched as he wrote a series of letters on the notepad, then flipped it over. R-K-D-E-A, I read, stumbling over the sounds.
"Okay, so there are a few tricks you need to know, but you're getting it. You're doing great. First, when you pair an R with a vowel, it changes the sound slightly. So this becomes R."
"Like, where are you?" I said, remembering the message from Carubial.
"That's right. In that case, the E at the end was silent."
So many rules. But instead of confusing me, they fell into place like a puzzle, each having a spot that helped make the image into a whole.
And the A here has that longer sound, so it's K instead of Ka, and the I sounds like an E.
"Arcadia," I said, suddenly recognizing the word.
"You got it."
Malik's lips curved upward, and his praise warmed my chest. I lowered my eyes, wanting to please him again, wanting to see that smile directed at me. But I couldn't want that. Those were human emotions. I couldn't crave his approval and my father's also. No man could serve two masters. Even I knew that.
Try this one out.
He wrote another beneath the first word. I studied the sweeping curve of the J. J-E-Z. I looked up at him. That's my name.
Yes, it is.
Why did it give me such joy to see my own name there, to know how to write it? I took the paper from him and slowly wrote out, M-A-L-E. I paused at the end, aware that two separate letters made the same ending sound. Which was his? I took a guess and added K.
Almost.
The smile he gave me warmed me to my toes. He took the notepad from me, and I inhaled when his fingers nearly touched mine. An electric energy tingled around them, and I curled my hands into fists and put them in my lap.
M-A-A-L-I-K.
He turned the screen around for me to see. Strange spelling, and it didn't seem to apply to the rules and pronunciation I just learned. And yet, the name fits you.
I do like it.
He flipped the notepad closed and put it into his bag. A curious desire to know more about him pulled through me. What was... I shouldn't ask this. It felt too private. What was your Earth name? He lifted his eyes from his bag, once again studying me in a serious, probing manner.
Maybe I'll tell you someday.
He stood up, his wings opening and expanding behind him before retracting again.
We're done for today.
We didn't even argue. I stood up, unsure how to describe what I felt. I had enjoyed my time with him, and it saddened me that we were through. When do we meet again?
In a week, I think.
He walked toward the door, and I matched his stride. Malik glanced at me.
I like the uniform on you.
You do? I looked down at the white shirt and pulled my sweater closer around me. I always feel like I don't fit in. You don't belong here. His first words to me flashed through my mind.
It fits you,
he said, echoing my own words back to me. He moved ahead of me in the quad, and I lagged behind, holding my sweater against me with one hand and clutching my agenda with the other. The uniform couldn't fit me. I was black and hollow and ugly next to the rest of the students. Could it? No, I shook off the thought. No matter how hard I tried or what it might look like, I would never be one of these angels of light. I belonged with the fallen. I was created with the darkness. Nothing could ever change that.